Thanks so much, Michelle. My name is Mark Anthony Arena. I'm, of course, an author and a podcaster and a small business owner. I've been in this industry since 2000, and I'll explain that, how I got into this mess. But I just want to say, I haven't spent a lot of time in downtown Lee, but I do go to the rest stop all the time. I'm from Western New York, and whenever my mom and grandma and I would travel to Boston, you all have been our first line of defense. You have been our haven for us people who are hungry for lobster rolls. This is the first place we can obtain a lobster roll on the turnpike, and we always made it a point to stop here. I didn't have time today, but maybe tonight on my way out. So we are eternally grateful. Show of hands, who is frustrated by technology? If you are, then I'm more so, because I have to deal with it every day. And I know that it could be easier. It does not have to be this difficult. There does not need to be a trade-off between the powerful things we can do and the hassles that we experience. It doesn't have to be that way.
I'm glad to hear that.
Absolutely. The issue is this. You have normal people like yourselves with morals, ethics, logic, and common sense, and then you have the computer industry with none of that on the other side. So we're going to talk about how I ended up here in what I call the grease fire. Why do I call it a grease fire? Your computer's slow, and you call a dude, and he comes over, and he puts a scanner on your computer and a cleaner, and then it's worse. And then you call another dude, and he comes over and puts a scanner and a cleaner and a scanner, and it does a scan, and does an update, and puts an update, and then a scan, and then it's worse. And then you call another dude, and it's worse. That's a grease fire, right? I love that analogy, and I use that in my book to explain this entire industry. Here's how I landed in this mess. In 1992, Hallandale Beach, Florida, we were going down there to visit my grandma's aunt. And she would always spoil me and my brothers and make us whatever we wanted for lunch and always bought us Oreos. And she was just the best. And she had these cousins who were over from her side of the family, and they declared that they needed to buy a new TV. So my dad volunteered me, and he said, hang on a second, let's let Mark look at it first. So he took me by the hand and drove me into this condo high-rise on the beach. And we went to this cousin's condo, and I went in, and I can still picture it in my head right now. I walked in, and the TV was over there, and I said, give me the remote. And it didn't turn on. I said, all right, give me some batteries. So I rolled the batteries around, put new batteries in, and I turned it on, and it turned on, and they were astounded. What did that teach me? It taught me that the vast majority of the expenditures in this industry are unnecessary. And I remembered that as an adult. Someone's phone's ringing. I remembered that as an adult later on, and it dawned on me that that's the real problem here, right? The computer guys will look down on you, and they'll be condescending, and they'll blame you. They love blaming you, right? Couldn't be their fault. But it turns out that the industry is fraught with guys who want to scam you in scary basements, guys who think they mean well in office towers who actually just serve to complicate things, and very poor designs. They design things with increasing complexity, and they expect you to keep up. They move the goalpost every 2 weeks. I talked to a lot of people who retired from this industry, and they have no idea what's going on now. It changes constantly. Most dudes who are still actively working in this field haven't had training since 1991. And they're implementing those methods ineffectively. So from then on, I did tech support for my friends and family. But it wasn't until 2009, where I had just gotten out of college a couple years before. I had no idea what to do with my life. And I was near Canandaigua Lake, New York. I highly recommend visiting. The property taxes are higher than Lake Tahoe, though, so don't move there. And I was at my dad's cousin's sister's best friend's house. And I just happened to bring my girlfriend at the time. I said, "You sure you don't want me to drop you off at Starbucks like usual?" "No, I'll go with you." So she went with me, and afterwards she observed, "Hey, Mark, you're good at explaining this stuff in plain English. Why don't you do this for a living?" I said, "I don't want to do this for a living." She said, "While you're broke, you might as well." So that was 2009, and I've been doing it ever since. And I've been flooded, absolutely flooded with clients to the point where I became physically exhausted. I had an inkling that people were being ripped off by the big box stores, but I had no idea how deep it went. Here's what I discovered. My clients were not stupid. In fact, they were all intelligent, successful retirees, right? Doctors, lawyers, business owners. In the past 12 months, I've had 3 retired business owners, really sharp people, call me up and say, "Hey, Mark, a guy called me, said he was Microsoft, and told me to put 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand cash in a box, so I mailed it to him in India." These are no dummies. It's because the scams are elaborate, and the scammers, and I'll get into this in a bit, but the scammers realize that we as a society have lived in fear for the past 30 years. In my professional opinion, this is because of the extreme incompetence of Microsoft. If it weren't for them, this industry would be more stable. So I have clients who are doctors and a lot of lawyers, and my favorite guy was a guy named Dr. Earl. He lived till about 95 years old, and he had no fewer than 19 medical degrees in a frame on his home office wall. And he was awesome. He was really... Point is, y'all are no dummies, right? Y'all are learned people who go to libraries. But again, the industry either talks down to you or wants to complicate things in order to milk you for fees, unnecessary recurring fees. And again, I said there are 2 types of people: normal people with logic and ethics, and then computer industry. 99% of the PCs in landfills are there unnecessarily. I don't actually know the number, but the numbers are incomprehensibly large and increasing every day. Those machines were designed to stop working at a certain point. A lot of them. Others still function just fine, but people were told that they needed to toss them and buy new ones. Most guys in this industry make their money by foisting products and services on you that are unnecessary. I started off college in the IT department, and I partied all night and failed out of everything and dyed my hair blonde and ended up switching to a business degree. So I'm one of maybe 4 people in this industry who looks at the industry from a business ethics perspective. So it worked out. The vast majority of the products in the landfill are there unnecessarily. And again, even if a product is, honest to goodness, dead, at least properly recycle it. If people had any idea what was being done to them, they would get torches and pitchforks. That's what I say in the intro to my podcast. It's called the Computer Exorcist Podcast, by the way, and it's free. So if for some reason you like me, then you can follow the show. I had a guy a couple months ago in Easton, Massachusetts. Intelligent, successful guy, retired from a bank, really successful. And he said, "You know what, Mark? I got an update the other day on my 1-year-old laptop, and it destroyed the sound. And all I care about is listening to the Red Sox game, and that's all I want to do in my retirement, and now I have no sound on my computer. I brought it to the big box store, and they said, 'Sorry, your computer's a year old, and shame on you. Put it in the garbage, and we will gladly sell you another one.' It was damaged deliberately through something called an update attack. And the guys at the store didn't feel like fixing it. They claimed it wasn't applicable to Windows 11. It wasn't compliant to Windows 11, which is wrong, because any machine in the past 8-9 years is compliant, and even if it's not, I can make it compliant. It's all about extending the life of these things, right? So he said, Mark, should I buy a new one? I said, absolutely not. I can make a machine last 10 to 15 years, no problem. As long as you don't give in to the fear and the bullying. So that's what I'm doing about it. I wrote my book, I do a podcast, I give these talks, and I'm so thrilled to be here. I love doing this, and I tell people, most people are afraid of public speaking. It's the only thing I do right. I'm awful at everything else. So, remember playing Jenga as a kid with the blocks? It was one of my favorite things to do when my parents went out for date night and they left us with a babysitter. Here, play Jenga with the babysitter. And what happens as you build the tower taller? What happens to its stability? It becomes less and less stable. I actually did an episode of my podcast called Making Reality Great Again with this guy named Mark Wynn who runs an island nation, and he talked about this analogy as well. And he talked about how as society gets more taller and taller, so to speak, more developed and more complex, it becomes less stable. He talked about how he went to Silicon Valley one day for a meeting, and he sees these huge towers, these proud people with their big towers, right? And then he saw someone dying of a drug overdose right on the street, right in front of the building, right? You get it. So I'm going to talk today about 4 new threats your computer guy has not heard of. Again, most dudes haven't had training since '91, so they're not aware of what's happening now. The most important key concept that I will say today, if you remember nothing else, the most important concept I remember, aside from y'all are no dummies, the other important concept you should remember is viruses stopped happening in 2013. I've been doing this job 12 hours a day since '09, and I have never, ever seen a traditional, conventional computer virus since 2013. They do not occur anymore. So if some dude is pushing Norton or McAfee or WebRoot or ESET or any of those other things on you, it means he hasn't had training since 2013, or he likes pushing products and services on you that will cripple your computer. Some of them mean well. They think they're helping you out by selling you this thing. But it cannot protect you against any of the new threats that occur after 2013. I'm not saying there's no threats, there's just different ones. Viruses stopped in 2013. That's the most important thing I'll say today. So what if we all went to a doctor's office and the doctor said, hey, all right, you ladies have bubonic plague? No? All right, then you're probably fine. You're all right. Because that's all he was trained to detect, right? That's all this can do is look for ancient threats that do not occur anymore. This can only look for bubonic plague and polio, and that's it. Can't find anything new. So I find it hilarious when I look at a machine. For example, this, I promised Michelle I wouldn't modify anything on this machine, but I will certainly make fun of it. This machine is infected with McAfee, so it cripples the speed by 90% and is looking for bubonic plague. So there's a lot of side effects, right? And it's a beautiful way to spend $79 a year down the toilet. It's a great way. If you enjoy putting money down the toilet, go for it. It's an excellent way. Now, 40,000 years ago, Norton and McAfee did help you, right? Back when those viruses existed. But now they can do nothing besides waste your time, waste your money, and hassle you. Now, if you really are feeling nostalgic and you want to do a virus scan, there's one built into Windows. It's been there since 2012. It's called Windows Defender this week. They change the name every week now. But there's one built in that doesn't slow you down and doesn't charge you money. So if you really want to waste an hour a day, go right ahead and use that one. So what happens instead, Mark, if you're saying that these viruses stopped? What happens now? There are new threats out there. And the bad guys are always 10 years ahead of the industry. So the bad guys realized a couple things. Number one, let's talk about legalized malware. That's our first new threat. All right, I define malware as malicious software. That's what it means. Malware. Anything that spies, destroys, begs you for money. Anything that negatively affects you. Does that make sense so far? Bad guys now do this legally. They create malware legally. And it's not like someone banged a gavel and declared that spyware is now legal, but the bad guys realized, hey, if we don't use the word virus, if we don't use the word spyware, we can get away with it. As long as we call it toolbars, driver updaters, cleaners, optimizers, notifications, extensions, or my personal favorite, customer participation program. That one's from HP. And you're an unwilling and unwitting participant in their studies. It's fully legal because you clicked accept. And you had no clue, and nor did your computer guy have any clue, that these companies are now spying on you. They're still looking for 1990s threats. The HP one was interesting. I did corporate tech support for a year back in 2011. And I worked for a very large organization. You've all heard of it. But I would get calls all day. This one day, I got calls all day. How can I help you? Well, hey, Mark, my computer's horribly slow. Okay. What'd you do lately? I didn't do anything, but one of your colleagues came over and installed my HP printer for me yesterday. Okay. Next call. Hey, Mark, my computer's horribly slow. Okay. What happened? Nothing, but your colleague was here yesterday and installed my HP printer. Next call. Hey, Mark, my computer's horribly slow. Had an HP printer yesterday. That's the kind of stuff you learn by being in the job, right? You learn on the job. That's interesting. So I looked into it and found that with every HP printer, I mean, every printer brand does this, but HP is the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst. They include filthy pieces of fully legalized spyware that no computer guy can ever detect if he doesn't know what he's looking for. That's the day I discovered that, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? So they call it customer participation program or sometimes product improvement study, which is ironic because their products have done the opposite of improve over the past 30 years. Remember how our 1990s HP printers worked really well for a long time? And we'll get into that later. I'm still using a 1996 HP printer in my bedroom right now. It was well made by people who cared. But people started to realize, hey, we can get more money out of people if we make stuff with less care. But we'll talk about that later. All right, so does that make sense so far? If your computer guy is doing a virus scan, you can educate him and say, hey, you know what? There's something new out there. It's called legalized spyware. You have to go through the list of installed programs right here. And he just has to know what's going on. Web Advisor by McAfee records every website you go to and claims to protect you and then harvests all your information. There's another one, Avast and AVG, right? Both of them are free antivirus, right? My nephew came over and gave me Avast or AVG or Avira or whatever. Avast was caught, and I talk about this in my book, where they gave away a free antivirus, slowed you down massively, but at least it was free, claimed to help you, and then it was harvesting all your behavior legally because you clicked accept. And they were selling everyone's information through a subsidiary company. Right now, people are worshiping data. I could see if you want basic demographics, if I want to advertise you, I want to know what your hobbies are, fine, but everything you do is being harvested. Side note, who has Gmail here? So Gmail is safer than a lot of the other ones, than Spectrum or Comcast or any of those. But Gmail is now ultra paranoid and they love locking their own people out and all that. But there's something called the Google History Scandal. If you're a member of Gmail, you can go home on your computer, on your browser, and go to google.com/history and press enter. And that is where they disclose a list of every single website you have ever gone to. What happened was, years ago, there was an uproar because Gmail was reading your messages, right? So they said, all right, we're going to stop doing that. And they patted themselves on the back. And the next morning, they implemented the Google History scandal. It's just a different way to spy. So you now know more than any computer guy in town, as I like to say. Conceptually, you know what's happening. Does that make sense so far? And that's what I love to hear. Once I explain it in plain English, people get it. This isn't rocket surgery. I actually had a guy in one of my classes. I used to teach a local rec center class in my town, and the guy was an actual brain surgeon. And he comes in and Mark, I feel stupid. So I still work on his stuff. He's a really sweet guy. And I still work on his machines, and I remind him, hey, look, that's what they want.
Doesn't that make you feel better?
I hope it does.
They want us to think we're stupid about stuff like that. Yeah.
If we're not looking, viruses are not the problem. What is the problem?
There are 4 new things that are the problem. This is the first one. No, what we're talking about here, legalized threats are the first new thing. As long as you don't call yourself a virus, you get away with it. Actually, you reminded me, my analogy here is, what if we all went across the street and wanted to rob a bank, and we walked in and said, hey, everyone, don't worry, we're the plumbers. Give us all your money. We didn't say we were bank robbers. We just said we were the plumbers. And then what if we got away with it, right? Preposterous, isn't it? All of it. All the above. Yeah.
Buy new computers out like that.
So I make money by saving people money. Most of the guys out there in the big box stores make money by pushing things on you when it's unnecessary, right? Some of them wish it weren't another way, but I've talked to a lot of guys and they say, yeah, I really wish I didn't have to do that. I wish I could make money some better way. But a lot of them are just stuck in a cubicle and they have families to feed. But the things I discovered, and there's a lot of guys who understand all this, but they don't understand that humanity needs it, right? They can maintain their own systems for a long time, trouble-free, but they don't understand. And I'm trying to talk to these technicians and say, hey, look, let me teach you how to do this. Because you can make a lot more money by helping people. When I first started my business, I would play poker on Sunday nights with some of my buddies, and the one buddy said, yeah, my parents have a computer guy, and he has 100 clients, and he charges them $40 a month. And I said, gee whiz, I'd love to make $40,000 a year. That would be great. But then I thought, why would I milk someone for monthly fees, right? How about I actually solve their problems once and for all? So now I charge them a lot of money on day one, and then they just don't have problems. You can never have a major problem again once I do a proper backup and a proper service. I had breakfast with a guy. As I got busier a couple years later, I had breakfast with this guy, and I said, hey, can you take on my overflow work? I'm starting to get busier. And he said, yeah. And, I love Microsoft, because when people have problems, that's my bread and butter. I said, really? I said, do the cops enjoy when people shoot each other because that's how they make their money? Really? But that's how guys think. So it's been, once I discovered that none of this is necessary, and again, maybe these guys think they think it's necessary, right? A lot of them are told, well, I was told that this computer is out of support. And we'll talk about this more, but I'm writing in my next book, I spent a huge chapter talking about the magic word support. All right, everyone calls me up, Mark, my computer just said that Windows 10 is going to be out of support. Is my computer going to explode? Do I need to buy a new one? I was told I needed a new one. When you see that message, you have another 5 years before you have to worry about it. And even then, I can just update the machine so you can keep going another 5, 10 years. I make it a point to use computers from 2012 right now. My 2 main machines are 2012, and I have a 2015 machine at my office. That's the newest machine I use, just to prove a point.
There's another cause for things going wrong other than what comes from the outside. I push the wrong button and things go haywire.
And it's all touchy garbage. It's all house of cards, touchy garbage. And it's designed every day as these products go on, they get more and more and more and more ultra complex. So if you look at the thing the wrong way or touch the touchpad the wrong way, it all shatters. And later on we're going to talk about scary pop-ups, because I'm guessing that's what happened, where you got a scary pop-up. So we'll get into that next. All right, ready? The next new threat that is affecting this industry is what I call update attacks. I've coined that term to describe this phenomenon. You know, when your computer says, "Don't unplug me, I'm busy," and it spins and spins every couple of weeks. And your phone spins and spins and spins. "Updates are underway, leave me alone. Shame on you." Right? What happens inevitably after an update?
Confusion. New things
Bingo.
that you don't need.
Bingo.
Time wasted.
Exactly.
Anger, frustration. I hate
Yes,
updates.
yes, yes, thank you. You wrote the script right here. I don't need to say anything. That's perfect.
So Apple's operating system wants to update. That's bad.
It's a beautiful way to turn that computer into molasses. Here's what happens. You'll see it on the news sometimes, right? "Users are encouraged to do an update because we just discovered some flaw in the iOS or some flaw in your iPhone, a flaw in this, and users are encouraged to do the update immediately. Because if a guy in Siberia is wearing a green shirt on a high tide and a new moon and he's doing the hokey pokey, he might be able to get into your computer. And it's a Wednesday at 9:30." Right? Astronomically unlikely scenario. So they dangle that fear in front of you. We need to prepare for that astronomically unlikely possibility. But at what cost? What are the side effects? Number one, as you said, the confusion. Scrambled eggs, right? You try to use it after an update. "I don't know what happened. All my stuff is gone. They moved it around. How do I do this now?" Every week now, they change it, because it's kind of like if you bought a car and the car salesman just smashes into your garage in the middle of the night and rearranges it and puts the steering wheel in the back seat and puts the brake pedal on the passenger side. And too bad for you, this isn't yours. What do you think, you own this? These are products you purchased and you thought you owned. But to them, you're just a pair of eyeballs to be advertised to. Keep updated. Keep complying with our compliance. There's a lot of computer guys who drool with the word compliance because it means they have to bring you forward and sell you more garbage so that you're compliant. And then next week, "Oh yeah, those products are out of support now. We discovered they weren't safe either. Oops." And by the way, I'm just outlining the problems. Later on, we're going to talk about a better way forward. Right? So when I used to do a 4-evening course, people would leave the first night saying, "Mark, I'm really scared now." Don't worry, this is just the first chapter. We'll talk about a way. I've learned how to bulletproof computers so you simply don't have problems anymore. There's no need for the frustration. So do you remember the Donald Duck cartoons? When I was little, I used to love this, the old, really old Disney cartoons. And remember when Donald Duck is in a boat and he springs a leak, right? So steps on it with his webbed foot, and then what happens? He sprung another leak, and then 2 more, and then he steps on those with his feet, and then another one. It's hilarious. That's what happens with updates. When you apply an update, it fixes one thing, and it breaks 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 other things. Oops. Huh.
I just erased the notice. I don't want it. It keeps coming. It keeps coming, and finally, it happens without
Then it
warning.
finally force attacks. Exactly. Is it an Apple or Samsung? Okay, yep. So Apple realized again how massively profitable it is to destroy their own products. Apple was superior until 2019 when they fell apart. All the designers walked out. And I didn't even know that the designers walked out until a guy told me recently, but I could tell right away Apple fell apart. We'll get into more of that later, but basically they used to make products that are designed to last. They were designed to be upgraded. They were designed to last a long time. They were easy to use, powerful. Their new machines after 2019, you can't upgrade them. You can't repair them. You crumple them up like a paper cup and put them in the garbage. So if you hit them with an update attack, you get the confusion, you get the fix one thing, break 10 more, and it's massively slower, right? You ever notice after an update, your product becomes dramatically slower? It's a beautiful way to put that thing in the garbage sooner. My rotary phones and 1950s fridges lasted for decades. But these phones are expected to last a year. So, and in a second I'll get to how to prevent that. Also, privacy. They do what I call a don't mind if I do. So with a lot of update attacks, Microsoft and Apple and friends, again, these updates come from the actual publisher, right? These are the actual origin, the originators, the manufacturers, the creators, but they are destroying the products. There was the Apple battery scandal, right, where you got an update on your iPhone and all of a sudden your battery destroyed itself. Oh, I was told that when my battery goes, I have to buy a new one. Oops. Even if you do have a bad battery, bring it to a third-party person who can just repair the battery, so you don't have to spend another $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 on a phone. But the don't mind if I do part is interesting. So the reason why Microsoft was so desperate and adamant to get people involved in Windows 10, right? They were actually force attacking Windows 10 on older machines. Even when you click the red X, they still just thought no means yes, and they attacked the machine with Windows 10. Turns out the reason why is because of the don't mind if I do. There's a thing called getting to know you. And if you look in the menus, they'll admit that means they're recording what you type and what you say. Windows 10 is all about telemetry, right? In other words, remotely monitoring you. So when someone has a Windows 10 machine or Windows 10 and newer, I turn off the telemetry. And again, as I said earlier with the ownership, this isn't yours. Who do you think you are? You're just going to keep buying this stuff and buy a new one every time we tell you to buy a new one. Or every time we make you think you need to buy a new one because we use that magic word called support, which is a magic cash grab. Oh, I was told it's out of support, so I'm going to go buy another one. With Windows 10 and newer, consumers aren't allowed to protect themselves from update attacks. So I use a product that I apply myself that I found. It's called Stop Updates 10. So that's my secret sauce. I just gave it away. For Windows 10 and newer, it's called Stop Updates 10. Flip a switch and it protects you against future update attacks. Oh, now the machine is stable for 10 years. Stop Updates 10. And you can have your computer guy install that, and it protects the machine from the constant bombardment of update attacks.
Now, does Apple have the same problem?
Oh, yeah. Again, recently, in recent years, so actually even before recent years,
So I just bought an Apple 12, and what I'm seeing on it now is an update.
yep.
Reading carefully, it's an update to Apple 18. And I didn't realize that.
And every 2 weeks they make more updates, and then it'll be horribly slow.
And I couldn't get off the page. It said my options were now or later.
Yep, shame on you. Kick the can down the road is the best you can do. So on Windows, I use Stop Updates 10. On an Apple phone, on an Apple portable thing, you go into Settings and General, and then Updates, and you flip all the switches. And they'll still nag you desperately, but they won't force attack as much. On occasion, they might force attack. And you know the term pork barrel spending, right? That's what they do, right? Oh yeah, we're going to have this little patch and it's going to fix something, but then they put 90 other things in there to spy on you or to slow you down. Wow, Mark, I wasn't going crazy after all, was I? And Joe, to answer your question, for the Mac OS, if you use a Mac computer, same deal. You go to System Preferences. This week they renamed it to Settings, and then Updates, and then turn off all the switches. And then you really have to fight because there's a lot of hidden switches, and just dig deep in there and turn off everything. And even then, they'll berate you viciously every day for update attacks. When I service a machine, I actually go in there and remove its ability to communicate completely with Apple to fully protect it from even the force attacks. But if you notice, dramatically slower every time. So the macOS updates didn't matter too much. They used to fix things. But when Apple unleashed the Sierra attack on humanity, I want to say it was maybe 2014. I can't remember. It was somewhere around then. All my clients called me up same day. Mark, my Mac is horribly slow. Do I have a virus? What did you do? Well, I don't know. I'll bring it in. I'll look at it. Mark, my computer is horribly slow. My Mac is horribly slow. Did I get a virus? Everyone in one day. Mark, my Mac is horribly slow. Did I get a virus? Let me see. Each of those people had the macOS Sierra. So I call it the Sierra attack. Apple force attacked this thing called Sierra. Like a mountain range, right? They just named it that. And it crippled the speed by 90%. Put it in the garbage. All right, does that make sense? Ready to move on to the next one? So the next one is called CryptoLocker, hostageware, or ransomware. It's all the same thing. Most of the time they call it ransomware. This used to occur in residential settings, but more often it's occurring in organizational settings, businesses, governments, hospitals, municipalities, right? Because the bad guys know that these organizations have a lot of money to pay for a ransom, and they know that organizations think Microsoft Outlook is acceptable. Microsoft Outlook is a beautiful way to let threats into your machine, ransomware and email worms and everything else. So unfortunately, organizations still think that Microsoft Outlook is a usable product, and that's how the ransomware gets in. What happens? Ransomware walks into any Microsoft Windows machine like a hot knife through butter. All right, it's possible to happen on a non-Microsoft machine, but it's only been done once in a laboratory setting with two hands tied behind its back. So yeah, it's just Windows machines. They walk in like a hot knife through butter, and they scramble your documents and photos. They make your documents and photos unusable. And then they beg you for ransom money. That make sense so far? So they get in, like I said, through Microsoft Outlook or Microsoft Internet Explorer, right? Two utterly naked products. I call them digital Swiss cheese. And it turns out that 76% of organizations end up paying the ransom, which implies that 76% of the bearded tyrants, I call them, 76% of the IT staff can't protect them. I'm paying a dude $100,000 a year to sit there and protect me from viruses. But 76% of cases, these companies and organizations have to pay the ransom because their dudes don't know how to protect them. A couple of years ago, I was driving through downtown Boston, and I was listening to the radio, and they said that and normally I cry whenever I hear about these situations, right? Because I know how to solve them. But they said Massachusetts Steamship Authority was hit with a ransomware. But their president, their leader got on the radio and said, I didn't pay the ransom because my staff protected me. So my organization was not victimized. And I was thrilled to hear that because most of the time they end up paying. So how did his people protect him? It's very simple. You guys have something that most computer guys don't have. It's called common sense. If you do a backup, okay, you copy your documents and photos to an external drive. You don't move them over, right, because you duplicate them. So your stuff is in two places. Even if you don't have a bad guy actively seeking you out, right, all this stuff is garbage and it breaks all the time anyways. So you want to duplicate the stuff you care about, your personal documents, your photos, right? Duplicate them, disconnect it, right? External hard drive, thumb drive, either way, it's all the same. Duplicate your stuff, disconnect it. Put that external drive in a fire safe. Now nobody can get to your stuff. Does that make sense?
But then you would need two of them, right? One you store away, and then as you continue to work, you need another.
So you just periodically, every 6-12 months, you just do another backup. And there's a lot of details to it, but the general concept is every once in a while, duplicate your stuff onto an external, disconnect it.
But mine is plugged in to the computer.
Yep.
So it does it all the time automatically.
So in your case, yeah, you should disconnect it and put it in a fire safe. And every once in a while, you can plug it in to update it. Or if you want to have two of them, fine. You know, get two of them. You're probably infected with Time Machine, if that rings a bell. It's slightly better than nothing. It's one of the worst ways to back up, but a lot of dudes tell you to use it. So if you want to do Time Machine, fine. Just buy yourself two drives so that one of them is always disconnected. I do the same. I have two backup drives. I keep one at my parents' house, one at my office, disconnected, far away. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's like a thumb drive or an external hard drive. And the pathetic thing is, I'll go to someone's house and I'll say, hey, did your last computer guy have a backup drive? No, he never said that. Most computer guys don't even know how to do a backup or don't even know that it's important. I can't tell you, most of the time I go to someone's house and, oh, my computer guy never set a backup. Or I brought my computer to the big box store and they copied all my stuff to the new one and then they threw the old computer away, so I have no backup. Really? So you're swinging from vine to vine? The guy wants you to just get scared until you buy a new one, and then a couple years later you get scared again and buy another one? Anything, yeah. Any brand, your stuff, no matter what brand of computer you have, you still have documents and photos that you care about, yeah.
So right now I'm working on a document that is very complicated, and when I finish for the day, I email it to myself.
And that's a good way. If it's crucial, absolutely.
Is that protected?
Yeah, that's fine because your email, well, it depends. I mean, if you have new style email. Old style email won't, it depends. But you should be fine. You can always email it to a friend as well. If you change documents constantly, there is a cloud style backup. I recommend anything that's not Carbonite. I like any other brand that's not them.
Oh, no, you said when you do the backup, you're going to need you said a thumb drive, you're going to need a lot of info. It's going to be a big thumb drive.
Yeah, it all depends. You have to ask your computer how many gigs of stuff you have, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the story there. The point is, at Massachusetts Steamship Authority, he had one of the few IT guys in the world who actually understands common sense. You duplicate your information every once in a while, and you disconnect it, and you put it in a safe place. Bad guys can't get to it if it's disconnected. Does that make sense? That's all. And 76% of computer guys don't understand that.
Yeah, it's disconnected until you put it somewhere, until you put it back in.
So worst case, you get two of them. So the one's always, it all depends, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But the point is, keep it disconnected.
Yeah.
A lot of dudes, even the few guys who do understand what backup is, they tell people, oh, just leave it sticking out of the back of your computer, because they don't understand how this works. All right, ready for the next one? Got a few more minutes. This is one of the most important ones. This is very, 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 very important, okay? So this is the fourth new threat. And later on, we got some bonus new threats we'll talk about. There's so many. So, as I said in the beginning, bad guys know that we, as a society, have lived in fear for the past 30 years. We've lived in fear of this technology, right? In the 60s and 70s, they were just fancy adding machines. That was great. But because, in my professional opinion, of the rise of Microsoft and other Silicon Valley companies, We've lived in fear as this industry has ultra-complexified itself for fun and profit. Bad guys know if they claim they are Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, whatever, they can call you and they can say scary sentences, and we will obey simply because we are afraid. So this concept is called a support scam. The bad guy calls you and says he is tech support and convinces you he is here to help. There are 4 ways a support scammer can get to you. Number 1, they will call you out of the blue because they're dialing every number in America one by one, sequentially. And later on, hopefully later this year, I'm coming out with a product that will stop all robocalls on a home phone. It's been on my back burner for way too long, and I really need to get this thing out there, so keep in touch, and maybe, hopefully, I'll get that out. So number 1, they call you out of the blue. Or number 2, you go on the internet and type in, I need Outlook tech support. I need AOL tech support. What's AOL's phone number? What's Microsoft's phone number, right? And then they put a fake evil phone number. And they claim they're Microsoft or Apple or whatever, okay? Or you get a scary email that says, PayPal invoice, congratulations. You just spent $399 on a Norton or a McAfee or a Geek Squad, right? And then they put an evil phone number. Those are very easy to tell. Just look at the sender, right? If it says the sender is CindyLouWho@AOL.com, chances are it's not Microsoft, okay? And if there's a phone number, it means it's definitely not real because big tech companies hate you and don't have time to talk to you on the phone. They do not like telephones. Okay? If you see a phone number. So the 4th way, and this is the most common one, is they'll put a massive full screen thing on your computer. It takes over the whole screen, and there's sirens because they know that seniors can't lower their volume. So that people call me up all the time, and there's huge sirens in the background, and I say, walk away from your computer so you can talk to me. Mark, there's sirens. I have viruses. I was told I have viruses. Huge warnings, right? System may have found 2 malicious viruses, rootkits, trojans, downloads, cookies. Your personal and financial information may not be safe. Dangling fear. And then an evil phone number. What is this right here? Is that a virus? No. It's a scary sentence. It's nothing more than a scary sentence chock full of the words we have been trained to fear. What if I knocked on people's doors in your neighborhood and said, bubonic plague, polio, and just started saying scary words to people, and then give me money, I'm here to help. That's all it is.
What they want out of that is money?
Yes, here's what happens. They'll get whatever they can out of you, either money or access to your computer, that sort of thing. Here's what happens. If you see a scary message, first and foremost, okay, press the escape key and then close the window. That's all you need to do. When they warn you with sirens, don't turn off your computer, you'll lose all your data. You should turn off your computer or just escape key and then close the window. There was a Swedish vampire movie that came out years ago called Don't Let the Right One In. And the idea was that the Swedish vampires couldn't get into your house unless you invited them into the house. It's the same case here. Close the thing, hang up on the guy, and you're fine. The only way anyone can ever get into your computer nowadays is if you let him in. So if he talks to you on the phone and he says, I'm Microsoft, I'm Amazon, I am AOL, and I need to get into your computer. So can you do this? Do the run and then type logmein123.com or whatever it might be that week, right? Support Assist or Quick Assist or Ultra Viewer or whatever. Just please don't let him in. Prevention is easy, but if you let the guy in, then you have a disaster. And you call your sheriff, and your sheriff has to break the news to you, hey, look, sorry, the guy took all your money. There's nothing I can do. I can't fly to India. So prevention is easy. Here's what they do. I'll tell you what they do, and I'll tell you what we're going to do to stop it. How's that? What they do, if you let them into the machine, they use fully legalized remote tech support tools, the same tech support tools that I use. And the same tech support tools that whoever's maintaining this machine uses, except whoever's maintaining this machine left McAfee on here. They are using fully legalized remote tools, so a virus scanner can't help you. I had a lady a couple months ago, and she was one of my longtime clients. She got one of these scary guys breaking into her machine, so she called her bank, and the bank said, you need to bring it to a computer store to do a virus scan. So the computer store did a 1991 virus scan, couldn't find anything. By the time I got there, that computer store totally missed a giant fake cleaner that the bad guy put in, and that computer store totally missed the fully legalized remote access tool that the bad guy put in. They were looking for viruses. This is all about scary sentences, fake tools. Sometimes they'll do a smoke and mirrors where they'll show you lists of scary things that aren't real or don't matter. And then they'll say, we are securing your computer. Don't use your phone. Because they don't want you using your phone to call someone to say, hey, is this real? I had a lady who ran to her neighbor's house, and she said, Mark, I'm calling you from the neighbor's. This guy, Microsoft said, don't use my phone. I said, it's not Microsoft. I'm glad you went to your neighbor's. They were trying to get you to not call me. All right? They use scary words. And then they'll say, I'm securing your bank accounts. And what they actually mean is they'll go to your Edge or Chrome or Safari or Firefox or, heaven forbid, Internet Explorer, and they'll look for your saved passwords that are now conveniently saved by your browser, right? So that's very poor design on the part of the computer industry. Oh, we're going to conveniently save all your passwords in one place. So the bad guys look at that list of saved passwords and they grab all your passwords. And then sometimes they'll say, give me all your bank account numbers or give me your credit card. Or, you know what, I'm just going to charge you $29.99 a month. Oh, you know what, how about $399 for lifetime protection? Whatever. They'll ask you for any amount, whatever you agree to, it doesn't matter. It's all fake. They'll get anything they can out of you. And then they have ongoing control of your machine until you remove that fully legalized tool. So if you go to a dude who does a virus scan, he doesn't miss it. He doesn't see. He misses the fully legalized tool. Then that dude, the bad guy, still has control of your machine. Point is, they're using fully legalized methods, and they're using scary sentences. Does that part make sense? So what can we do to stop it, and who's going to stop it? Thank you. Exactly. It's up to you. Norton can't stop it. Best Buy can't stop it. McAfee can't stop it. You warning your friends is what's going to stop this. Awareness is the only thing that will stop this. The only thing we have to fear is? Of course. Awareness is the only thing. It's up to you. It's up to all of you to stop this. All right. Let's do a couple of... Come on, why is that? There we are. All right, really quick, last 5 minutes. You want to do one last bonus concept? Who remembers Dennis the Menace comics? So here's Mr. Wilson trying to drink from his hose, right? Does he have a problem with his water authority, or does he have a problem with Dennis the Menace? This is precisely what's happening in residential internet connections. You ever have problems where your Netflix is buffering or your streaming TV is buffering or your smart TV is buffering and buffering, right? Is it your internet connection coming into the house, or is it someone crimping your signal, crimping the hose? I've coined the term fake Wi-Fi to describe this. Your internet company provides you a really powerful internet connection coming into the house. Matter of fact, like my mom says, she orders a kid's dish of ice cream and they still charge, they give her a huge dish to justify the $8 price. Same thing here, right? They're giving you insane amounts of speed that's unnecessary to justify that huge price. And later on, if you stick around, I'll talk to you about renegotiating your internet bills, because there's no reason to pay a huge price. But anyway, they give you an incredibly powerful internet connection coming into your house. And then, who rents the router? Any of you guys rent your router from your internet provider? You have an incredibly powerful internet connection coming into your house that you're paying $89 or $109 a month for. And that fake router cuts your signal by 90%. Oh, and by the way, if your TV is more than 11 feet away from the router, it won't work. Incredibly powerful connection that could power your whole neighborhood, comes into the house, and then the fake router cuts it and crimps it. And there you are trying to figure out why your Zoom doesn't work.
So she could buy your own router, is it?
Exactly. So this fake router, I mean, yeah, it's a piece of plastic, it exists, but it's utterly useless and horribly designed. And you're paying $10 a month for the privilege. $5, $10, $15 a month for the privilege. Huh. Anyone I talk to, Mark, I have Wi-Fi problems. Okay, you have fake Wi-Fi. Really? Yep, I do this every day. So we rip it out. You buy a real router. The routers I recommend, TP-Link is my favorite brand. They have one that covers most houses, and it's like $25. And it's yours forever. Just the router. So the modem is what connects you to the provider, and the modem is fine. But the router is what governs the Wi-Fi traffic in the house. That's your crash course.
TP what?
TP-Link is my favorite brand. And they're in the news lately. They're being criticized for something, but I still stick with them because they're the least spying company of any of the others.
And where do you find them?
Anywhere, Amazon, or I like to support non-Amazon. I like B&H in Manhattan. And B&H has this technology no one's ever heard of before called human beings who answer the phone. Yeah, it's incredible. So you must know about them, huh?
Oh, yeah, we buy it, everybody.
Awesome. Yeah, so I try to support them.
Closed on Jewish holidays.
That's great. It's cool. Yeah, their website is not allowed to work on Saturdays. It's neat. B and H. Yeah, you could just ask them, hey, give me the cheapest possible TP-Link router, and it's called the 841N is the part of the model number.
Is that when you do that, you have to, does the TV see it, everything sees it, or you have to?
So you have to then, you have a trustworthy computer guy plug it in. Don't do any of the setup. You don't need apps. You don't need anything. You just plug it in and you're good. And then, you just connect all your stuff to it. And that's it. It's yours forever. And that way, the next time the joker from your cable company shows up, he can't shatter everything. And they will blame you. They will push you desperately to keep that rental router. Well, if you don't have our router, you're not allowed to call us for help, right? And they'll fight you and so on. But just plug it in, set it up. It's yours forever. And that's that. We will talk about some bonus concepts if you guys want to stick around afterward, but I'll be signing some books here now, and I would love to talk about more concepts, and I'm going to show you my last thing here. There you go. My website is thecomputerexorcist.com, and for only $1 million a speech, I will show up to your town. Actually, they're paying me a couple bucks less than $1 million today, but I'm happy to show up.
Thank you.
Thank you.